for a long time, and I think it's getting smaller, but for a long time, it was those people and these people. And they didn't believe that they were doing the same thing for the same reason with the same passion. And again, I think that's slowly changing. And I would love to see a day where the same people that are tuning in world championships in Rwanda are the same people who are tuning into world championships in Abu Dhabi or vice versa.
Hello and welcome to episode 84 of the Virtual Velo Podcast, the show that bridges the gap between athlete and avatar, keeping it real in the world of cycling esports. Now, my co-host Chris Schwenker and I, today on the Virtual Velo Podcast, we welcome back Eric Hill, the founder and president of Project Echelon and Echelon Racing Promotions. Under Eric's leadership, Project Echelon has grown into the top UCI Continental team in the United States, several years running, in fact, empowering veterans through cycling and self-discovery. Its sister organisation, Echelon Racing Promotions, channels 22% of proceeds to the Project Echelon Veterans Foundation, honouring the 22 veterans who tragically take their lives each day.
Eric has been at the lead of cycling's digital crossover with roots traced back to the pandemic era, from bringing esports winners to the real-world start line of Joe Martin stage race, to partnering with USA Cycling on national esports championships, and a cause that's very dear to me, championing adaptive athlete inclusion. Now he's come full circle, and he's back to share news of an exciting new partnership that he believes will redefine the landscape of virtual racing.
Welcome back for your third appearance on the Virtual Velo Podcast, Eric. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for being back. We're almost episode 100. I'm going to have to figure out how to be your 100th guest, too. That'll be a celebration. We'll have to do confetti in the bedroom or something.
Well, I'm sure we can manage that and phase that for this time next year, and then we'll be laughing. Well, before we get into the big news and we talk about that new initiative, Eric, can you give our listeners, especially those who may not be familiar with Project Echelon, a quick refresher on your mission and also your impact?
Yeah, absolutely. So Project Echelon was founded out of just this concept of how can we use our passion in sport to help other people. As professional athletes, we are awarded so many opportunities, whether it be sponsorship, promotion, gear, experiences, all of those things. And I believe that it's our moral responsibility to use that opportunity to give that experience to other people who deserve it. And so for me, veterans have been near and dear to my heart. I have a close friend who made multiple attempts at suicide, Eric Beach. He's the veteran that helped me to found Project Echelon. All the way back to 2014 is when we first came up with that concept. 2016 is when we incorporated as an organization. My sister and brother-in-law who are active duty today. Project Echelon has grown from being an organization that supported 12 veterans in our first year to over 600 annually, and tens of thousands of dollars in grants and scholarships given each year. And so really, again, just using professional sport to serve our mission of educating, equipping, and empowering veterans through physical activity and just this wonderful positive community that we have around our sport.
Yeah, and it is a fabulous community as well. Now, let's talk about this new partnership, Eric, with USA Cycling and TrainingPeaks. Please tell everybody about it. What's the vision behind it and how did it all come together?
Well, our partnership with USA Cycling isn't new, right? We've been working with USA Cycling for 4 years now to really be their official provider of esports competition, and in particular, their national championships. And so we've done that across a multitude of platforms. We started with RGT, really working with them and their real roads and being able to build in real life courses out, partnering with key kind of cornerstone races of North American bike racing in the pandemic periods. We've worked with Zwift. We've worked with MyWhoosh. So USA Cycling's actually been the constant, and they've remained committed to growing esports and using that to reach a new demographic of member for their organization. And I think they see the future of the sport too, and they want to be on the cutting edge of that. That's exciting for them. So that remains a strong relationship. What's new is the partnership with TrainingPeaks. And so TrainingPeaks, for those that aren't familiar with it, is really the premier coaching and performance management tool on the market. It is what just about every elite coach and athlete uses for kind of that diary of performance and being able to chart and just look at more data than most people can comprehend to understand performance management. So that is like their foundation. Last year, they worked with Velo and acquiring them and working to develop that tool and built it into what is now TrainingPeaks Virtual. USA Cycling's had a really strong partnership with TrainingPeaks for a long time, using it to help facilitate their national athlete program development and really target those goals of 10 Olympic gold medals at the 2028 LA Olympic Games. And athlete management, performance management is a huge part of achieving those goals. So they've been partnered with TrainingPeaks for a long time for that reason. And through that led to conversations of, well, we have this tool in TrainingPeaks Virtual now. We would like for USA Cycling to utilize that tool in an intentional way. They see opportunities to use it not only for racing and competition like we're using it here at Echelon Racing Promotions, but they also see it as an opportunity to actually do things like riding virtual courses and coaching. And they really want to expand what's possible through the use of these virtual tools in partnership with one of the largest athlete databases we have, TrainingPeaks, and their performance management. So it's really quite exciting to see all the dynamic pieces that are coming into play and have led to this partnership.
One of the things that you say about it is it's going to revolutionize cycling esports. Why is this collaboration such a big deal for Echelon, TrainingPeaks Virtual, USA Cycling, but more importantly, I suppose, the broader esports ecosystem?
I would say in the past, all of the partnerships that we've had were two-way. There was only two legs of a three-legged stool in place. For some of them, it was just Echelon Racing Promotions and the platform working together, and USA Cycling, our national governing body, was kind of on the outside looking in. Some of our more recent agreements were actually between the platform and USA Cycling, and we were subcontracted to come in and to facilitate the league. This is the first real partnership where it's all three parties deeply invested and involved and wanting to see this grow. And again, it's because of the possibilities that are available to us through the assets that each party and stakeholder group in that three-legged stool holds.
Yeah. So how about the everyday racer, the end user, the riders who are going to race your league? How will it change their experience, or will it change their experience?
They're going to have a lot of similar feels to what we've done in the past. Our identity of Echelon Racing Promotions is going to remain the same. Now, what we're really excited about, though, is that some of the tools that we were working alongside RGT to develop, things like Real Roads, things like embedded performance verification and governance tools, things like eBio Passport, if you remember when we were working with that. I think all of those things are built into TrainingPeaks Virtual. And because of that, I think they're going to have a more wholesome experience. I think the platform will continue to develop and evolve more rapidly. And the amount of data that, again, we have available, from everything from looking at in real life performances through the TrainingPeaks diary, like I said, that athletes and coaches are using, to the data that we're collecting through the esports platform. There's just so much that can be done with that. And with the use of tools like AI and all of this, just the way that we can process it is drastically and more rapidly changing as well.
And I think we'll unpick some of those as we go through the rest of the podcast.
Your journey has really been quite interesting, Eric, and we've had you on the podcast numerous times to describe the many iterations of it. You started in 2023, you transitioned from RGT to Zwift. You said the reason then was to go where your members are. The league saw pretty solid engagement there, but you were also pretty candid about the Zwift's limited support for the community racing, the challenges of the sustainable partnerships that you wanted to grow there. In 2024, you moved over to MyWhoosh. You touted the robust performance verification, the free-to-use access, and the higher competitive standards being the UCI's proven platform. Now you've made this wholesale change again. You speak about the three legs of the stool. What is it? You mentioned the USA Cycling's part in this, and obviously that partnership is very robust there. But why is it the decision prompted now for Echelon? Why does it work for you guys now?
Yeah, it's a great question. And to be honest, we continue to have conversations with MyWhoosh in particular. Zwift, as you know, is stepped away from elite racing. The commitment of USA Cycling and TrainingPeaks to helping, I think, just be revolutionary and wanting to advance this in a way that was very transparent and was going to help this evolve for all three stakeholders, right? I think was really attractive. For us, having a national governing body partner is essential to what we ultimately want to do and be as an organization. And so for us, Echelon Racing Promotions, our goal has always been, one, to be the premier provider of national series and national championships for esports competition for national governing bodies. So we want to expand who we've worked with. To date, we've worked with 3 national governing bodies over our couple of years as a company. And then 2, we have a dream of being a part of the committee that helps to host the first esports Olympic Games competition. So being involved with national governing bodies, especially the one that is the host of the 2028 LA Games, and then being involved with the UCI, being involved with platforms that are cutting edge, all of those things we think help us to achieve those goals. It's difficult to switch platforms, though. We realize that that's not a strength of ours. Over the years, is having moved platform to platform to platform. We've even talked about what does it look like to have a multi-platform series where you're going from one place to another. And unfortunately, at this time, just having talked to a number of our regular competitors, there's just too many barriers to successfully do that for the masses right now. And so I don't think that's a dream that is going to go away for us. Unfortunately, it's just not right now.
The audience is very interested in learning some of the details of the Echelon Racing Series, what's going to happen this season, how it pertains to the national championships. So first of all, and we've probably asked this question several times in many different ways already, but what was your pitch to USA Cycling and TrainingPeaks for the series itself?
Yeah, we really wanted to get back to our roots. And our roots were, again, pandemic era, using esport to advance our sport, both virtually and in real life. And part of that was working with in real life race promoters to help build sustainability, visibility, and just excitement and energy around their races. Another part of that was just drawing more people to the sport, whether it be virtually or on the road or both. We wanted to give all people an opportunity to compete where they felt comfortable, and hopefully maybe they expand that into other disciplines as well. And then we wanted to work with, again, a national governing body to help them remain on the front end and front edge of this. And then, USA Cycling doesn't have a full-time staff or dedicated resources to esport at this time. And so we got to become that partner over time. And it's been exciting and an honor to be trusted as such.
So many of the community members are hesitant to register because there aren't a lot of details out there. So let's dive into it. First of all, will the courses mirror real world routes and align with the USA Cycling events that you mentioned? Or will we see new esports specific design concepts?
Nope. So they, again, getting back to our roots, it will be using GPX files from in real life routes. Those routes may be abbreviated, right? We're not going to have you race 5 hours in New Mexico. But like we've done in the past, we've taken segments of those, maybe consolidated the courses, or we've just cut it off and started at kilometer 120 and finish at 180. So we work with the promoters side by side to decide what do you think is best, what are the key features that you want people to experience. But the heart of that has always been, again, giving riders of all ability levels the opportunity to experience what we believe are some of the most iconic races in North America, to be able to compare themselves in some cases here with the races we're partnering with some of the best riders in the world. How fast can you do a lap in Baltimore? You got to watch that race and see some of the best riders in the UCI rankings compete in it over the last, not 3 years consecutive, but over 3 years. We've got new races coming back, like the Philadelphia Cycling Classic. That's been gone for a decade. Most people don't even know what that course looks like. Most people may not even know what Manayunk Hill is. But the opportunity to ride that, to feel that, and then to be able to watch it and say, all right, I've done this course, virtually, but it took me a minute and 38 seconds to do X, Y, or Z climb. They just did it in 57. Holy smokes, right? It just brings context to the sport that we love in a way that I don't think is possible otherwise.
Yeah, I've done that Dirty Dozen in Philly. It's all those climbs are quite a test. I must attest to the fact that those guys go over it so many times just defies logic to me. All right, so let's talk about the races themselves then. More information about the general length, characteristics of the courses, and race formats. Are they going to be straight up scratch races? Are we going to have points races? What are we looking at generally?
Yeah, so they will be straight up scratch races. They are going to be whoever crosses the line wins. That will be for our single day races. So the series is points based. It's an omnium. That points table is listed right in our race series Bible. Each day for a single day race will be worth the amount of points that's here in this table. Our stage races are stage races. They will be cumulative time based. Points awarded for winning that stage race will be based on the individual points table as well. So the series itself is an omnium, a points omnium, and then one day races, and we will have stage races. And for those stage races, because it's cumulative time, you need to race each consecutive day in order to start the next day, just like any other stage race would.
So a question that a lot of people have asked me, as you probably know, you've been using TrainingPeaks Virtual. One of the assets is the bots, right? The race bots. Which I know that's a dirty word to a lot of people, but if you've actually used them, it's a quite compelling way to race.
Yeah.
Will you be filling up fields with bots?
We will not.
That's not happening. Okay, in the past, you've had a professional broadcast. It's been great to get a lot of eyes onto the race. What are your plans to elevate the storytelling this season?
Yeah, we're really excited to be working with Damon Bates and ZMS Livestream. And so he will be providing the footage and doing the camera work. And then we will have Colin from Inside Cycling doing the commentary. We will also have our lower categories, B and C. That full broadcast and production will be done by Inside Cycling. So elites will have ZMS Livestream, and commentating. Inside Cycling will be doing the other categories.
And in the past, you've had a prize purse, you've had sponsored product for the racers and things. What can the racers expect this season as far as sponsorship and prize structure?
Yep. So there is not a financial prize. Last year, that was just very transparently, that was fully sponsored by MyWhoosh. We, as a company, do not have the financial assets to be able to provide that type of prize purse. So we are working with, we have a new partnership that we announced last week with Stages Cycling. So Stages is going to be providing power meters for our category winners, and then we will also have power meters that are going to be raffled off for all participants. And one thing that we've often talked about is, the best of the best are the ones who always are winning our categories, our series. How can we, entice and bring a benefit and opportunity to our regular participants as well? And so, again, we want to provide just a general raffle to all of our registrants. And then for anybody that does the complete series, so they're registered for the full series, they'll also be entered into a raffle to win a Stages Smart Bike. So we're quite excited about that new partnership with Stages. And then we'll also have raffle items from Wahoo. So we'll have Element Bolt computers that will be raffled off for our registrants. So we're racing for pride in a lot of ways. There are some prizes available, and participating in the Echelon Racing League events, again, is what qualifies you for national championships. National championships, obviously your prize is a jersey. That's what we're all racing for.
So, Eric, you mentioned a little bit earlier on involving promoters in designing those courses and what those courses are going to look like when you're racing on TrainingPeaks Virtual. But one of your signature moves was bringing esports winners to the real-world start line, and you did that at the Joe Martin stage race, so quite a groundbreaking idea at the time. The virtual winners of the 2020 Joe Martin stage race, GC Sprint and King of the Mountains competitions wore those respective jerseys to the start line of the real-world race the following year. Are you planning anything like that again in the future? Any more crossover as well?
Yeah, and so that was a pandemic era thing, right? There was no race to be had that year, and that was a commitment we were able to get from Tour de Gila and from Joe Martin stage race. I actually just did a post the other day about Sarah Gigante, kind of looking back at our roots and seeing Sarah win Virtual Tour de Gila, and then seeing where she is today, having went from Movistar to, what team is she with now? She's with...
I think she's with AG Sudal.
She is. You are right. You're right. So just so cool to kind of see that and track that story. So unfortunately, no, that is not something we have going on this year. It's something we'd love to get back to. I think one of the differences is that during the pandemic, we probably had 50 to 60% of our competitors be in real life professionals as well. And I think across the board, we just don't see the number of starters and competitors be in real life professionals today, as we did 3 or 4 years ago when there wasn't another competition avenue for them. Not to say that it won't come back. I think it was one of the most brilliant things we did. And I do think that doing work like that is what can truly revolutionize, but also create ties between the two disciplines. But a lot of the competitors we have today, like the reason they've fallen in love with and compete in this space is because it doesn't have all of the elements of in real life racing, like travel and equipment requirements and and the dangers of the road. And so you got to find a balance of like, all right, so somebody who won that isn't participating in that in real life race. Now what? I don't know. Versus before, we could almost guarantee that the person that was going to win was also going to be at that race, just based on who we had competing.
Now, again, a little bit earlier on, you gave us a bit of a hint about verification and standards and fairness right at the start of the show. Let's unpick that a little bit more, if you would, for our listeners, because you've always promoted fairness as a critical component of Echelon Racing League. What pre- and post-race verification measures are you implementing for this year? And, of course, then the USA National Champs.
Yeah, so our Category B and C races will all be facilitated as Tier 1 races on TrainingPeaks Virtual, which means the tool is actually built to analyze the equipment that the user has. So it's going to look to verify that they have an approved trainer. It's going to look to verify that the power curve is acceptable on that. And then it's also going to verify that you have a heart rate monitor. And then if those things start to slip or data transfer between those things isn't up to speed, I don't know how else to describe it, in competition, there's actually a limiter, a governor, if you will, on the avatar. So if it's not reading your heart rate accurately, you can't just go off the front of the bike race. It's actually going to just keep you in the group until you fix the issue. So that's the Tier 1 verification that we're going to use. People will still have to submit an initial height verification at the beginning of the league, and then they will be submitting just a weekly weigh-in ahead of the races using a Google form and posting their videos to YouTube or another shareable platform like we've done in the past. For our Category A elite races, those will be a Tier 2. And so that means that they will have those Tier 1 requirements, but then they will also be required to have dual power. And then that platform is built to be able to identify outliers of data and flag that information. We will have TrainingPeaks Virtual send us the data to say, here's the individuals or performances that you need to look into and critique. And then we'll work with a panel of Echelon Racing Promotions and USA Cycling to determine what we're going to do with that information and how we're going to officiate that situation.
And when it comes to those national championships, how are you ensuring that level playing field? Because it's one race beforehand that they have to compete, isn't it, for entry into those national championships or onto that start line?
Correct. Yeah. So they need to compete in, complete, and have met all the performance verification requirements during the time of the Echelon Racing League in order to be eligible to race the national championships events. The other thing that's really nice about this partnership with TrainingPeaks Virtual is that it is tied to TrainingPeaks, which ultimately gives us access. I mean, if we were to go look at mine, you could look back 17 years of data, all the way from my college running days to today. And so we have one of the most robust data sets of information available to us to do some of that analysis as well, if we need to tap into that. And with, I'd say, a strong majority of elite athletes and their coaches are using TrainingPeaks, like we can say that with a certain level of certainty, that the largest percentage of competitors will have a good data set and a good history of information in TrainingPeaks for that purpose if we need it.
Yeah, I actually think that my profile goes back 17 years as well. So right around that.
We're all nodding.
Yeah. There's a wealth of data there, but there are some athletes that may just be coming over or don't have as much or are using vastly different devices in the real world as opposed to online. Certainly doing what you can to get the performance verified and things. Will there be any post verification? I know, like in the past, you had athlete analytics. Bjorn Ostenbrink, the former head of Zada, would review that data. Are you having that for this series?
Yes, Bjorn and George will be doing that review and analytics, and they will be sending us any outliers and data. And then, like I was saying, that team, that panel of individuals from Echelon Racing Promotions, USA Cycling, would do the review and make decisions based on that information.
Great. Now, you had mentioned earlier that USA Cycling wants to be on the cutting edge of cycling esports. How has their involvement this year changed from previous events? Will they be more active in the promotion of the league? Will they have the events on their website? Will they be pushing it to some degree?
Yeah. So to answer your questions, yes to all of the above. They're actively promoting it through their USA Cycling member newsletter. It is on their website as well, and they have done some cross promotion with TrainingPeaks Virtual as a part of that partnership as well. And so there is a collaborative marketing plan in place. They have a goal of us having at least 200 unique users participating, competing in national championships. That's their ultimate goal for this year.
Now, you've dubbed this series the USA Cycling Esports National Series. What's the significance of that, and how does that affect the legitimacy, how it's seen by the everyday USA Cycling member?
Yeah, I didn't dub it that. USA Cycling did. So I think
Nice.
right, yeah. So I think them just giving it that title and putting it right next to their road series, their national mountain bike series, their national cyclocross series, and just saying that this is an established series that we endorse, that we have direct involvement in, and that lead to the road of national championships. For them to make that same statement for esports as they do for every other discipline that they stand behind, I think is a step in the right direction. To recognize that there is a need for a dedicated national series just shows that they see value and that they want to grow this space.
When you say stand behind, there is a subset of elite athletes that I don't think they necessarily agree with you. And when I'm speaking about the athletes that qualify for the World Championships as members of the United States, they receive, I probably safe to say that they don't receive the level of support that they would hope that they would get. Does this provide a pathway to providing some assistance for those athletes? The athletes that make the World Championships are not members of the national team. There's no national selection criteria. I can see how the Echelon Racing Series is appealing to them for the everyday user, but USA Cycling also has an elite category of racers that they put a tremendous amount of resources behind. Will esports athletes ever realize that?
That's a question I can't answer on USA Cycling's behalf. So, yeah, that would be a question for them.
I've asked that question of them for probably twice a year for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
I wanted to get your perspective on it.
What would be interesting, though, is to hear what they believe the support, for example, athletes on the road are getting. I think that there's actually a misconception about what we get on the road. I had 3 riders go and represent their country for the World Championships in Rwanda, and I was responsible for paying for hotels, flights, meals. And so I think there also might be a general misconception about what these guys are getting versus what we should be getting. I don't think it's that different.
It's always an interesting debate, isn't it? It really, really is. Well, let's just talk about some of the other things that have popped up in those community discussions, Eric, have been also about cost. And there's obviously entry fees, TrainingPeak, premium subscription, USA Cycling license, all involved in this. Some of those cycling esports communities who primarily train and race indoors, well, some of them would say there's very little value in a cycling license, for example. What will it cost a racer who only wants to compete in the national championships?
Well, if they only want to compete in the national championships, then they're going to be paying for 1-day registration of the Echelon Racing League, so identify the race that they want to compete in, and then they'll be paying for registration for the national championship race. So that would come out to $50. It's $15 and then $35 for national championships. If they register for the full series, they're going to get free registration into that national championship event. So that's $75. And then there's also a fee for teams. So we've discounted registration for teams who want to register for the entire series. And so we're hoping that teams will take advantage of that. register as a team. And there's some wonderful benefits for them as well. We'll work with them to get their team-sponsored bike into TrainingPeaks Virtual and their jersey into TrainingPeaks Virtual as well, so they have team representation within the platform.
So you mentioned the two races, the 15 and the 35.
Yeah.
But there are other costs on top of that, right? They would have to be TrainingPeaks premium subscribers if they're not already, and they would have to buy a USA Cycling license, right? So I think the last time I checked, the USA Cycling license was about $100. The TrainingPeaks premium subscription, I don't know if you can buy it monthly, so that's you can.
You can buy a TrainingPeaks Virtual monthly subscription.
So that's about $15. So we're looking around $165, $175 if you want to purely just race the nationals. Do you consider that a barrier for participation for those people? And how are you addressing that accessibility?
I mean, registration for a single event at USA Cycling Road National Championships is $165. I've got to pay to get there. I've got to pay for a hotel. I've got to pay for my food. So again, like there's a cost to sport. There's a cost to competition. There's a cost to being called a national champion. I think there are a ton of barriers that are removed through esport, but to expect that it's free because you're doing it from home is not a fair expectation. There are people that put hours and hours of work into making it happen. Those people, including myself, would like to be compensated even to a very small degree. Believe me, I don't make money doing this, but we certainly can't lose money doing it either. And so, yeah, there's going to be a cost to that. I think it's a fair cost for fair competition, especially if people want to see the sport grow and move forward. You have to invest in what you believe in, and being at the start line, part of that investment. As far as paying for TrainingPeaks Premium, that cost for the monthly membership is on par. I think it's actually cheaper than a monthly Zwift membership. Can easily look at it that way, and you get a tool for your own performance management that you can use on top of that. I think that kind of negates the conversation, at least as far as Zwift would go. Obviously, MyWhoosh is free, but their funding model and their intention for that platform is, I think, different than others, and certainly different than what TrainingPeaks is doing. And then the USA Cycling membership, if we actually want to see the growth and validation of the sport and the national governing body stand behind it and be advocates for it to continue to be a national event or a world championships event or be in the Olympic Games, well, you've got to support your national governing bodies too. And the way they make money is memberships. That's how they pay their people. That's how they do their advocacy. That's how they lobby for this to move forward.
It's a really interesting debate, actually, and I know it's one Chris and I often touch on when we just chat about the rise and growth and Echelon itself. You've had entry fees for some time to virtual cycling. Other organisers really now are coming on board with that as well. But like you've just alluded to, event organisers out there, whether it's cyclocross, mountain bike, road, crit, there are infrastructure costs, and there's sort of a thought, and I think, an assumption that because you don't have those infrastructure costs indoors, when you're putting on an event, there is very little cost, and that's not actually true.
Yeah.
So it is a really interesting debate, and I think it's one that will continue to evolve over the next couple of years, because there's that sustainability, isn't there, of how do you sustain event organisers in this space to continue to put on events and series and rounds and activities for not just the community but for elite cyclists as well.
Sure. Yeah. And there is plenty of infrastructure still. We're paying for online cloud space. We're paying for virtual computers that are possible of running multiple cameras to do the feeds. We're paying for commentators. So there is still an infrastructure. It's not as tangible as going to a race course and seeing a cop stand on a corner. But that's also why you're not paying $55 a race to start. And then, again, there are people that are doing this work, and people can only do so much out of the kindness of their heart for free. Eventually, their family members would like to see a benefit for that hard work too. And I'm sure you both deeply understand that with how much you invest in this space.
Yep. We haven't gotten paid yet, though, so maybe we'll try to work that in.
That's what I'm saying. But your wife would sure be happy if you did, Chris.
No, that's certainly true. And to be fair, I advocate for organizers charging for events, but I'm not the one who's trying to determine what the value proposition for that is. It's the users, and that's up to the promoter to provide that value for them.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But, as we said, it's certainly a debate. And to legitimize the sport, we have to support it. And it is something that needs to be done. It's just the user wants to know that they're getting something in return. And that's what we're going to find out about.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm going to add one more piece to that too, though. If it is free, the user's ability to hold me accountable is zero. And if you're paying for it, I now get to, I have reason to take your complaint into consideration or your considerations into action. Right. So I think that's it's an interesting double-edged sword of what we think our rights as an athlete and competitor are. Well, again, if you want to have a say, you better have a stake, and your stake is a fee.
I'm going to just let that one sit out there, Eric. I'm not going to touch that. All right. So moving on, we've had the UCI Cycling Esports coordinator, Jacob Fraser, on the podcast actually very recently. And we brought up the trend that you're circling back to now of using real world courses, basically bringing traditional road racing indoors. And he said his shared belief is that true cycling esports shouldn't be constrained by real world traditional rules, that creativity and innovation should drive the discipline. What's your take on that statement? And how do you see the balance between traditional replication and defining a unique identity for cycling esports?
Yeah, I think it's a great statement. I agree. There's so much opportunity to revolutionize what we're doing. My personal goal and vision has always been to use esports to connect, again, people to the sport that I love, and that's racing in real life on the road, and to close the gap between those two communities. Because for a long time, and I think it's getting smaller, but for a long time, it was those people and these people, and they didn't believe that they were doing the same thing for the same reason with the same passion. And again, I think that's slowly changing. And I would love to see a day where the same people that are tuning in world championships in Rwanda are the same people who are tuning into world championships in Abu Dhabi or vice versa. We're not there yet. But again, like I said, I think it is innovative to be able to bring GPX courses in real life races and give people at home the ability to feel what the best riders in the world feel when they compete on those courses. We can't discount that for innovation. Yeah, I think that can be interpreted a bunch of different ways. Are there really creative and unique ways to do things like last man out and points races and things of that nature? Absolutely. Is it how we're facilitating the league at this time? No. Does it mean that there's space for that in the future? Absolutely. I think, we could get to that point. I think we have a core user base, a core audience, and our core audience in the past, we had our highest level of participation when we were doing in real life races. We were using the model that we're using now. So that's where we're at right now. As that user base grows and we have greater participation, then I think that's when we can start looking at some of those other options and trying to move the needle on what people willing to do and how they view esports racing.
The pandemic had a lot to help you out there with that, but it'll be interesting to see. We obviously are pulling for you, absolutely.
Yeah. So you talk a bit there about the future. Let's just shift our focus that way a little bit. How are you going to define success for this partnership, and for the series? Is it about participation? You've already mentioned 200 races, exposure, revenue, legitimacy, or is it something deeper?
I think I'm going to look at three things. So one, our baseline goal, again, is to get back to pandemic number participation in esports national championships. And that's just over 200 competitors. And so for us, that's direct validation of this matters to people. Showing up is the best way to vote, right? And so show up, be on the start line, compete, and show us that you value this and that USA Cycling should continue to invest time and energy and passion into that. So that's objective number one. Objective number two, again, for me, is really still closing that gap between esports and in real life and getting people to, again, have a shared passion and be able to see these sports as connected and legitimate and fun and great ways to just connect with the sport that I love, and that's racing on the road. That is what led me here. I'm a person that leads with passion, and that's my passion, and that's what I want to share with other people. So, and then the final piece, hearing from our partners and stakeholders that they're seeing the needle move on their engagement as well. So we have people like Stages, we have people like Wahoo, we have these race promoters that are allowing us to use really their name, image, and likeness to help promote this series. Well, we want to hear that they're getting positive feedback and benefit and seeing the engagement and excitement from our competitors and from viewers as well.
And this marks your 6th season. I'm going to say that again because it's a really great number. This marks your 6th season of Echelon Racing League on 4 different platforms, with plans for several more years in this relationship with TrainingPeaks Virtual and, of course, USA Cycling. What motivates you to keep running this, Eric, each year and to look years into the future?
Yeah, like I said, it's just passion. The sport of cycling has connected me with amazing people, has allowed me to positively impact people's lives in ways that I never anticipated. I've, met you both through this and countless other people. We talked about Sarah Gigante before, Jackie Godby. Chris just did an incredible article on her. Those people, those connections, those stories is ultimately what fuels the fire for Frank and myself. Obviously, goals, ambitions of being a part of the sport's evolution and maybe having our name etched in history in a small way is a personal objective. I don't think it's the primary goal and motivator, but to be at the LA Olympic Games and see esports competed, in those venues would be a dream come true for sure. But yeah, it's really the people and the connection that we have because of this great sport.
Well, finally, once this revolution gets rolling, Eric, where do you want to take it next? I always throw in a really big vision question at the end at the moment, but what is your vision for the future of Echelon's involvement and for cycling esports as a whole?
I think it's very clear. I've said it multiple times now. I'd love to see this particular discipline be the first esport in the Olympic Games. I think we have the platforms for it. We have the data for it. We have the governing bodies for it and the users who are hungry and experienced to do it. For me, being a part of that, seeing that come to fruition, and then seeing the entirety of our sport thrive as a result of it is ultimately what I want. If that means that someday Echelon Racing Promotions is a small part of a larger engine and we're not independently operating, that's okay by me too. Like I said, this isn't a cash cow doing this to pay my mortgage thing. I'm doing this fueled on passion. And if it evolves into something other than what it is today, that's okay. But hopefully we're just a catalyst that's helping to continue to keep things moving in the right direction like that. That's another motivator is we don't want to see this stop. We've put too much into it at this point. Seeing Zwift, although maybe they weren't the easiest folks to work with and maybe we had disagreements on how this could look and work over the years, seeing them step away from, elite racing at the same time was bittersweet because it was a step in the wrong direction for a lot of people. And it's just a misconception now that we have to kind of fight, right? People are like, well, if they stepped away and they're one of the biggest platforms in the world, why are you still doing this? What makes you think you can make it better than they did? And I, again, have put too much time and effort and thought into all of this to see it fade into the sunset.
I'm going to pause us there and just stop and say thank you very much, Eric, for joining us today. It has been really, really interesting discussion. Well, you can subscribe to the Virtual Velo Podcast on your favourite podcast provider. And of course, on YouTube, you can follow me, Emma Martin, on Instagram at biking_Emma. You can follow Chris at the Zamunique. You can catch me putting words to the action this weekend on the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club. It's the October final. The year is running away with us. Head over to thezamunique.com and please become a member of the Escape Collective to join the conversation and support independent cycling esports journalism. We have yet more interesting guests from the world of cycling esports joining us. We're excited to see who will be here next. And thank you to Eric Hill for sharing his exciting news and to you, our listeners, for joining us. Chris, as ever, will remind you to please take care of your heart. Get a coronary calcium scan. Me, I'll tell you to enjoy your cycling. Ride safely. We'll see you again soon. Goodbye.